bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. All right. Today's Monday, December 30th, 2024. You just had a sneak preview of Jeff Harman, who is back in the green room. I'm not supposed to start the show that way. We were still sound checking and video checking right up to the beginning of the show, and that's my bad. I never mess up here in the control room. Today's Monday, December 30th, 2024. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, and this is what is crazy, everybody. This is our last show of the year, last show of 2024. Tomorrow is New Year's Eve, and then Wednesday is New Year's Day. And then we will be back on Thursday, of course, in 2025 next year. So let's do this, man. Let's have a good time tonight. Jeff Harman is here. And yes, we are going to go through his predictions for the new year of 2025 and maybe a little beyond that. That and much more tonight with Jeff. And you can help support everything that we do around here by getting yourself a Fade to Black t-shirt. We have two t-shirts, two t-shirts, two ways to get them. And the links are below. You can get a Fade to Black membership. You can get a Game Changer membership. You can choose your shirt. You can do that there. Or you can just order a shirt. Yeah. Or you can order both shirts, one of each. They are now all in stock. Everything is autographed. Everything includes shipping. The links are below. All right. Now, I was going to say something else. You know what? Now, I don't think it matters, kids. No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter at this point. It is our last show of the year. Very excited. I'm humbled. I am honored to have been with you all this year for 2024. And thank you for the support and just being here every single night. When you have so many choices in life to go and do something and you choose to spend it here with us. So just thank you. Again, it is just a humbling experience for me. It's been a great year. We've got a busy year coming up. 2025 is fully booked, fully slammed, and it's going to be exciting, and I am excited. Tonight, Jeff Harman is here. 2025 predictions. Tomorrow, we are off air. It's New Year's Eve. Wednesday, we are off air. It's New Year's Day. Thursday night, Trey Hudson returns. Very excited about that. Our first show for 2025 will be with Trey Hudson, and we're going to be talking about his work, the TV stuff, all the fun stuff that he does, all centered around unknown phenomena. Now, I have about 8, maybe 10 events coming up. My first 4 major events coming up. First off, the Conscious Life Expo that is at the LAX Hilton. This will be the 10th straight year of me hosting this event, the largest conference in the world. It is February 7th through the 10th, 2025 at the LAX Hilton. Right after that is Rise of the Guardians. This is March 29th and 30th, 2025 in Sedona, Arizona. I'm hosting and speaking there as well. And then I'm off to the Midwest for the Contact Modalities Expo. This is May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 2025 at Delavan, Wisconsin, at Delavan Lake, heading back to the Midwest. Then I'm going back to Peru right after that for the Inca celebration of the sun. And that is June 17th through the 27th, 2025 with Brian Forrester. I'll be going to Peru twice this year. This is my first trip down. Now, I'm hosting all of these events. The links are below. Go get your tickets, information, speakers, everything else that you need to know is in the links below. And there you go. It's going to be a great year, 2025. All right. So let's get started. Jeff Harman is with us tonight. He's a good friend. I've known Jeff for many, many years, and his wife, Camille, very good friends of mine. He's very talented. And tonight he's here to share his predictions for 2025. Now, he draws on ancient techniques, but he also mixes in the modern stuff. He also rides a motorcycle. It's not a Harley, though. But every time I see Jeff, he's got his jacket on. He's pulling off the helmet. He's just had the wind in his hair, and that's what he does. And I love that about Jeff. And he meditates on that bike, and I think that's where he gets most of his astrological predictions. Comes from being on the open road in the lanes, just passing by you. We're going to talk about the stars and what they reveal in global events. We're going to talk about your personal growth. We're going to do that as well. And 2025 may have some challenges, and we will jump into that as well. He is a second-generation, world-renowned master astrologer, spiritual advisor with 47 years of experience. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, the one and only Jeff Harman, and he's right there. Jeff, good evening.
Hey, good evening, Jimmy. Thanks for having me on.
Man, you're pretty excited.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you though, Harley's not as old as Indian. See, I drive an Indian. Indian came out in 1901, and Harley came out in 1907. So, and I got to tell you, all the Sturgis guys, they all go out to Sturgis for the big rally, right? That was started by an Indian motorcycle dealer in the 40s. So, Indian's right there with Harley, man.
Yeah. I'm going to leave that right there. But I'll say this. I'm not wearing a Harley shirt tonight. I did that for you. I did that out of respect. But when I was shopping for bikes, I have been shopping for a Harley. You and I have talked about this many times.
I love Harleys. I've had Harleys.
And I looked. I knew I was going to get a Harley, but I was looking at other things to maybe change my mind. And Jeff, I'm being serious too. I stayed very open about this. I was looking at Ducatis too as well. I was looking at Ducatis, a Ducati Cafe Racer, specifically an older one. Different years, but something older. And I looked at the Indians, and I looked really closely at the Scouts. I test rode a few of them. And I did the Triumph Bonneville Bobber. I rode that, which I really liked. I like that. I came actually pretty close to getting a Triumph. But I kept coming back. Yeah, I kept coming back to the Harleys.
Yeah,
kept coming back. And I was like,
Harleys are great. I got the Roadmaster, that's the top Indian, and that thing's a beast. I love it. I've got 100,000 miles on my Indian already. I
believe it. I believe you're always riding it. You're always riding it.
It's the only way you can get around this town.
I know, right?
Either that, or you got to allow an hour and a half for traffic, right?
Yeah. I just crossed. I'm at 11,000 miles in 11 months on my bike.
All right.
And that's pretty good for part-time riding. I ride every day. I don't ride it. I don't commute with it, but I do wake up in the morning and I try to burn a tank of gas a day.
Oh, that's good.
That's what I do. I do about 2-3 hours in the morning.
That's good, yeah.
It's great meditation.
And you're out there by Skunk Works, aren't you? Yeah, you're way up.
1 mile away.
Wow,
yeah, right down the street.
I got to come up there and see your new place. You've been inviting me, and I haven't. The problem is I can't catch up with you, Jimmy. You're all over the globe. I'm getting tired just hearing about where you're going.
I'm just trying to be Jeff and Camille. That's all I'm trying to do.
I'm telling you, you're all over the place. You're jet setting. And 1 minute he's in Egypt, next minute he's down in Peru, and it's amazing what you're doing.
Yeah. And this year, in the last 12 months, I've been to Peru twice. Right. That's a pretty crazy.
That's a cool stuff you were talking about down there, buddy. All that stuff with the mummies. Wow.
It's
wild
amazing.
stuff.
It's amazing. But
It's really amazing.
was just up in Alaska a couple of months ago,
Wow.
and Canada, went up to the Yukon. And let me tell you something. The Great Pyramid's pretty cool, right? Ollantaytambo in Peru, Machu Picchu, pretty cool. You know what's really friggin' cool? Whale watching with the aurora going on at the same time. Let me tell you, that rates right up, Jeff. That is right
That'll
up
work.
there with the Sphinx. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
That was
Well, and I like the
absolutely
Alaskan
incredible.
Triangle, all the UFOs that are going on up there. You know, you were mentioning a minute ago that you're going to Delavan Lake, Wisconsin. I got to tell you, I grew up in Wisconsin in the northern part, just north of Delavan, up by, I don't know if you've ever heard of Hurley, Eagle River, Minocqua, St. Germain, That's right where I grew up. I grew up on Lost Lake in Wisconsin. And speaking of triumphs, I had a 650 Triumph shut me down in 1974, 75. I think it was about 75. Shut me down. And I look up and there's this craft. And actually a friend of mine saw it. And he says, "What the hell is that?" And I said, "Well, I just saw that over on another lake on the way into where I was." See, up north there, as you know, there's lakes everywhere. So
everywhere,
I'm coming home.
everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere. They're everywhere. So I'm coming home at like a little after 3 a.m. from a girlfriend's house, and I see this flash, out of the corner of my eye, and I go, "Oh, there's a craft," right? So I hit it and I nail it, and I'm coming down to the lower level, the elevation of the lakes, because you usually find the lakes are much lower elevation when you get to them, and all of a sudden the bike dies. And back then, it's in the 70s, everybody smoked, right? So I have my Bic lighter, I took it out, I checked the fuses, everything's great, right? Checked everything. That bike was dead. So I pushed it down to a friend of mine's house and knocked on the door. And I said, "Hey, do you mind if I keep the bike here? I'm going to walk home." He says, "No, let me give you a ride." And that's when he noticed. He said, "Wow, there's you see that craft coming down in the woods?" I said, "Yeah." And I says, "I track these things. I used to see so much activity."
Well, let's get back to what it looked like. What it looked like.
Well, it was triangular. It was yellow and triangular. And the coolest thing was I used to actually, my uncle gave me a Barlow telescope with a Barlow lens, and I used to try and get these things in focus. You can never get them in focus. It's really weird. It's almost like they're making sure you can't see them in detail. It's the weirdest stuff. And I would actually keep little maps. And my dad, he thought I was crazy. He said, yeah, you're seeing UFOs. So one night I got him up at about, 2 o'clock in the morning. He says, "Come down here." I says, "Look at this." And he says, "Yeah, you're right." He says, that looks like one to me. And then we watched it go down into the woods. Well, anyways, to finish that motorcycle story, so the guy gives me a ride home. The next morning, I take the pickup truck, and I said to my mom, I says, "Why don't you come with me? You can drive the truck back if it starts," right? I pull it out of the garage, out of the guy's garage, boom, starts right up. I'm like, okay. I've had missing time up there. And you talk about Alaska and you talk about these northern states. There is so much activity. And, people think it's just recent. My grandmother, who died at 102 years old just recently, used to tell me of stories of craft that they would see, fireballs rolling through the farmhouse. This is in the teens, in the early 1900s, So, and of course, these stories go back, as you well know, Jimmy, for thousands of years. We're not alone.
Well,
we're not alone.
Speaking of the aurora and the northern lights, does that type of cosmic phenomena play into astrology?
It does and it doesn't. Astrology is really the science, if you will, of astronomy, of interaction, of celestial and geometric positioning. But I have to say, the fixed stars really seem to have a big effect on this. And as we traverse around the central sun, and no one knows exactly what it is, but it's somewhere around 25,700 years or 25,900 years. And some people say 920, but nobody really knows exactly, but that's a fairly good gist. That's called the great year. And that's a long time, almost 26,000 years.
Yeah.
And that affects the sun. That affects the sun hugely.
Which is my point. And so let's stay right there for a second, because I just I've never seen the northern lights, and
we could see them
until this last trip, but right now, especially this last year, it just seems like they're getting farther south, right? Farther south.
They are.
And tonight, Jeff, and tomorrow, we're going to have the northern lights as far south as Oregon and Illinois. That's the line across the United States. And because of a CME that was barfed out by the sun yesterday on the 29th, huge coronal mass ejection. Now,
there's
that's
been a lot of them lately.
There's been a lot. And one would ask, is there something else out there that is affecting what the sun is doing? What do the stars say about this?
Well, I would say one thing I've been hearing, and no one definitively knows, but we are potentially passing through a dark rift. And also, we have something very powerful going on with Uranus. Uranus is really an eclectic planet. When you think about it, it orbits, no scientist drawing breath can tell us why it orbits almost 180 degrees on its side. Uranus is the planet of change, erraticness, and sudden technological breakthroughs. And it is doing something. I've been talking about this on my podcast every week. The last time we had Uranus where it is, which is in the Pleiades, and we all know the lore about the Pleiades, and for anybody who doesn't, the Pleiades is known as the Seven Sisters. There's Greek stories about it with Atlas holding up the heavens, and the Seven Sisters of Haiti, which represents the seven stars. There's lore of, they were put into the lower dimensions of hell. There's other stories where the Greeks and the Chaldeans and the Egyptians talked about this. Well, Uranus right now is crossing, it's retrograde, and it's crossing over one of the most evil stars in the sky. And that actually has happened last summer, but it's coming back, and it's going to happen right at the end of May this year. In fact, I made a note of that. Yeah, it's happening right in May, about the May 28th, 29th, give or take. It's going to go back over that star again, and then it's going to hit one of the most powerful stars in the Pleiades, known as Alcyon. Now, some people call it different, but I pronounce it Alcyon. Alcyon, there's a lot of lore about Alcyon. In fact, the Druids and the Egyptians all talked about this star in many different ways, but it's also where Halloween came from. And they say that's where the veil of heaven gets very narrow between the astral worlds and the physical worlds. And now we get into dimensions and dimension hopping and all this stuff. So Uranus sweeps over that, Alcyon. That's the first. It's actually going to do it 2 times. The first time is going to be in the middle of this July this year. Huge effects, huge effects. Secondly, it's going to retrograde and come back over it again in the beginning of May of 2026. So
okay, let's stop right there. When you say huge effects, I'm not going to let you just gloss over that.
No,
okay,
good.
So,
I'm glad.
Yes. Okay. So when you say huge effects, what do you mean?
Well, now we go down the rabbit hole even deeper. See, every 84 years to maybe 86 tops, Uranus goes around the solar system, and they call it a synodic cycle. It's just a fancy term for how, from Earth's perspective, does it take a planet to go around the solar system. Well, every time this happens, we see the world go into chaos and also great technological advancements. Let me give you an idea what the last one was all about. Remember World War II? Hitler was marching in Europe into Poland. He was also attacking France and starting the war with Russia afterwards. All of that happened as Uranus was trucking back and forth over the beginning of the Pleiades from the end of 39 into 41. That's really when it was kicking off. And of course, we know the United States entered the war. Now, if you go 84 years before that, we had the Civil War in the United States. If you go 84 years before that, we have the Revolutionary War. If you go 84 years back from that, you had the Black Plague in Europe. We could keep going and going and going. And there seems to be something very mystical and powerful that happens that disrupts the world and causes massive changes and also technological innovations. And this is what we're going through right now. This is why we just heard a ship was just confiscated over in the Straits over there, I think by Finland or Sweden, being accused of cutting. It was a Russian ship, but they said it could have been a Chinese. You might know more of the details. But we got trouble in the world right now. And
it was actually 2 different ships. One was Chinese, one was Russian.
Okay, that's what it was, yeah.
One the Danish boarded, the other one the Swedes boarded. So it was 2 different boardings.
That's what I heard, yeah.
But the Russian ship, what was curious about, so we've got the internet being cut, all right, and that's the main thing,
Right.
and they tracked an anchor carving track in the ocean floor there
To cut it
on the bottom of the sea floor that came from an anchor, and so what was the ship doing, dragging its anchor right over the internet cable and then snapping it? Russia says, sorry.
Sorry,
No, we didn't mean to drop anchor. But yeah, you're right. And so and China's been accused of the same thing. One of the things that then we're going to back up. One of the things that would disrupt everything on this planet that we're not quite used to yet is the internet.
Oh, you got that right.
Yeah, and if you go before 1995, I'm going to use a bad word here, Jeff. I hope you don't mind. You drive an Indian, you ride an Indian, you can handle a bad word. Before 1995, we didn't have shit connected to the internet. Nothing was connected to the internet.
Right.
Today, every single thing on this planet is connected to the internet. And it's the obvious things. It's banking, but how about traffic lights? How about the water system?
Everything.
How about every school, everything, every logistical thing, trucking, shipping, airplanes, every single thing in your life. Your refrigerator is connected to the internet today.
It's bizarre.
So disruption to the internet would bring things to a halt very quickly. And that's one of the things that scares me.
It's really scary. You know who invented the internet? The Rand Corporation and the Pentagon. This was, in fact, I was just talking to a guy on my podcast, Myron Dahl. If anybody listens to my podcast, Jeff Harman on the YouTube, Jeff Harman Astrologer, we had a great talk about this. I think it was the late 40s, right about the time Roswell and everything happened. We had the Pentagon go to the Rand Corporation, which is right down in Santa Monica. They're a think tank, right, for the government. And they said, we need to create a command center that's going to totally, survive a nuclear war. And they said, well, let us think about it, and we'll get back to you. So the Rand company or corporation comes back, and they said, we figured it out. You can't have any one location, but if you put nodes and servers all over the place, there's many places you can get them, whatever survives will be left. So the internet was actually born in the late 40s, and they had it really running, I think, right in the 49, 50. And all the government agencies were using it. And then the colleges and the state started slowly getting into it. And by the 90s, all you had to have was a terminal. You could jump in. Now, like you said, everything is tied into the internet. And it's kind of interesting because when you talk about it like a new one world order, this is fish in a barrel. Every single person, anything you say, do, or touch can be tracked on the internet and GPS. And it's
apparently everything except for drones in New Jersey. But that's we'll circle back to that. You know who else we can thank for the internet before we get back to our 2025? Hedy Lamarr.
Oh, she was smart. Wow.
Hedy Lamarr invented packet switching.
She's really smart.
Yeah. So without packet switch, there is no internet. Mm-hmm. And people don't understand.
Great actress.
Beautiful,
gorgeous.
Stunning. Yeah. But most people assume, they don't know, that your information on the internet is one unbroken stream coming in. No, it's packets.
Yeah.
And these little packets have little IDs on them, and they go all over the place, but they come to you and reassemble. It all happens at the speed of light. Reassemble, and then you get your stream in. It was Hedy that invented the packet switching, and she did it for a bunch of different reasons. Yeah, wow, Hedy Lamarr.
Wow,
Hedy Lamarr.
Yeah, I mean, she was really smart. She had a bunch of patents, from what I understood.
She did. She did like torpedoes, like crazy. She was very smart. Okay, so.
Did you ever see the black and white film with Harpo? Harpo Marx. He had a cell phone in a 1920 something silent.
I've seen
film.
that. Yeah, I've seen that.
Pretty well. I don't think that's AI.
I can top that. I can top that. Hold on for a second. I have a picture here that a friend of mine sent me from high school. Okay. Now I'm going to pull this picture up. I've got it here on my desktop. Let's see here. Where is it? Oh man, don't tell me. It's always here looking at me. And then when I need to grab it, I don't see it. It should be. It's a friend of mine who I just actually went to go see in Indianapolis. This is a family photograph at Christmas in 1981. And somebody is on a cell phone. Oh, you know what? I've got it. I've got it buried. Okay. I thought it was going to be quicker than that. Okay.
Right.
So, let's get started with something obvious. And, which is this: every year, we get to, December 31st and the same conversation pops up in our circle of friends. Next year is going to be the year for disclosure. It's going to be next year. We have to wait another year, and we have to reset. And it's also because we go through the year thinking, man, it's heating up. This is the year. It's finally happening. And then the end of the year rolls around and we've got to do a hard reset. Well, here we are. Tomorrow's New Year's Eve. Disclosure didn't really happen the way it was supposed to in 2024. So what's up for disclosure in 2025?
Well, I think it's possible it could start more. I think disclosure is already there. I mean, shows like yours, and again, speaking of the internet, and everybody and his brother has a smartphone that can run out there and now videotape stuff. So clearly the public in some ways doesn't even need disclosure. I remember 28 years ago, I was sitting with Jim Delatoso and Dr. Swimmer, and I think Stephen Greer popped in, you know who he is. And they were all saying, oh, disclosure is going to happen after the Phoenix Lights. They were examining the Phoenix Lights over at Village Labs. And never got any disclosure. You're right. We've been hearing this song and dance forever, and it never, ever happens. But I'll tell you, astrologically, there is one thing that I like that's happening this year that hasn't happened for a really long time. And that is there is a Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And this actually happens 2 times. Let me look at my notes here. Yeah, it happens 2 times. And what does that mean? Well, Saturn is structure and reality. In fact, many people in the spiritual communities, in the Vedic and the Naadi astrology say Saturn is where time, where the reality and perception of time stops. That'll come right back on. So what's interesting about this is that when you get Saturn-Neptune conjunctions, they tend to dissolve our normal reality. Plus, this summer, we got a lot of cool stuff coming up. We've also got Jupiter squaring Neptune in June, and then the Saturn-Neptune series, which means Saturn conjuncting Neptune. See, what people listening to this, they go, what the hell does that mean, right? Saturn conjunct Neptune actually means a 0-degree alignment. If you were sight out from the Earth, that would look like 2 planets together. They're joined in the sky. That's 0 degrees, a conjunction. So that actually happens 2 times. It starts this summer in the middle of July through February of 2026 as the second hit. That actually could bring disclosure to where, and again, I know I don't want to get political here, but everybody's talking about this new administration coming in. And I can tell you, I do think we're going to see people get put in this administration that are going to try and bring things out. And I like JFK Jr. getting in there. I really do. It's time to stop the crap in our food and the fluoridation in the water. Barnum and Bailey and Ringley Brothers used to put, they put fluoride in the water to dumb down the animals so they'd be more calm. And they've been doing it to us since definitely the 40s. And I think
back to disclosure.
Yeah.
So we have disclosure. So you said July of 2025.
Yeah, this summer. This summer is something that could really tip that off. And there's a series of things, and that continues into February of 26. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens because of the administration and all the things that are coming on. I don't think they can BS the people much anymore. Too many things are coming out. I mean, we're seeing it. The History Channel, your show, so many other shows are coming out with credible things. I was listening to you and Linda Moulton Hall, who I love her. She's such an amazing lady. I met her with Camille a while back, and really smart. I mean, there's a lady, I can't believe, she's where she's at in her age. She's like a 30-year-old. She's just amazingly sharp. And, it's anyone who wants to look at the evidence. Do we really need disclosure anymore? I mean, do we need him to come out and stand at the podium and say,
well,
yeah,
you and I don't. You and I don't. But
I
who
think,
needs to,
it would help.
But the person who can't talk to their family, their husband, their wife, they can't talk about this at work. They've been bottling it in forever. They need, you and I don't need the president to speak from the Oval Office, but a billion people on this planet do. And they need disclosure in that form so they can turn around to their husband or to their wife and go, see, right? Yep. And I'm not crazy. And anything short of that, you and I saying, no, disclosure's already happened. They're going bullshit.
Right. I'm not saying
they don't want to hear. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear it.
Yeah, I agree. That's that way. You're always going to say, they always say consciousness expands funeral by funeral, right? So, I mean, there's, some people, it's like religions, it can get into cultish type things where people, they're going to believe what they're going to believe. And you're never going to get everybody to believe it, even if they do come out from the government. But there's so much credible stuff coming out in the military. I mean, look at Minot Air Force Base and so many others. I had an old guy, George Parks. I don't know if you knew him. He was the head of the Tucson MUFON organization. George passed away. This is probably about 10, 15 years ago, maybe 15. And he had me do a whole study and presentation on all these phenomena to see, could we tie any celestial, aspects to this? And I've worked a lot with remote viewing groups too. Like I've got a compendium this thick with remote viewers, where they've hit targets and had certain phenomena happening. And we did find extremely detailed astrological phenomena. So back to what we were talking about, could disclosure happen? It actually could. It really could, with this Uranus crossing through the Pleiades. And this is going to be going on, folks, for about the next 7-8 years. It's the first portions of sidereal. And I have to clarify, because a lot of people might know astrology. We're talking about a sidereal zodiac here, not the tropical. And I actually use both because I find they're both accurate. But when Uranus traverses the first portions, which is about the first 10 or 11 degrees of sidereal Taurus, which is right where it is right now, folks. It's actually retrograding back right on the edge of sidereal Taurus, which is the gateway to the Pleiades. The world gets nuts. It gets nuts. All kinds of things start happening, like wars, also technological breakthroughs. I mean, if you look at World War II, what happened? I mean, it was stunning. The nuclear weapons, we had all kinds of expansion into jets and transistors and all this stuff.
Yeah, radar.
Radar. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
it was
huge.
An explosion.
That between 1939 and 1945, the technical leaps that happened, leading up to that, things were already in motion. The ideas for the jet engine were there. The work with atoms and what physicists were doing, and these ideas were there. The ideas and the radar. That was another. All of these things were ideas. But man, 2 years.
It came down.
Think about what were you doing 2 years ago? You were doing what I was doing. You were making mud pies, right? But somehow, all of this technical stuff just, leapfrog. Yeah.
Here's another thing. Talk about Terminator. I always say James Cameron was a genius, especially the first 2 or 3 Terminators. They were amazing. I mean, that scenario is not an improbability, and it really isn't. And of course, a lot of people report that the Greys are quite possibly mechanical, very sophisticated droids, and there may be some truth to that. But anyways, back to the astrology. We have a couple of things that could expose this. The eclipse points in the sky. Now, when the sun and the moon and the earth align, we get eclipses, right? So there's what we call the north node and the south node. The north node is the movie we're all playing. See, Shakespeare was right. The whole world is a stage, and we are all the actors. And everyone has their perception of reality. And, this kind of gets into disclosure too. People's perception of conscious awareness and psychic ability has a lot to do, I think, with when they see craft and phenomena. And I think that's really tied in with consciousness. And if they don't want to see it, they won't, or they don't believe it.
So what were you saying about the eclipse?
Well, the eclipse points are going to move every 18 and a half years. The eclipse points flip around the zodiac. Of course, we know they're around the earth, right? But here's what's important is that this summer, right around May 30th of this year, 2025, coming up this next year, we have what we call the North Node, also known as Rahu, and the South Node, known as Ketu, entering the fixed sign of Aquarius and the opposite sign of Leo. And you might say, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, that's fire and air in the sidereal zodiac. It always brings a combustion of technology and release of things. And you couple that with Uranus going through the Pleiades, plus what I just mentioned earlier, which could bring disclosure, which is the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. We're not going to that barbecue again for about another 35 years. So that leapfrogs too throughout. So what could all this mean? I think, and again, just like you were mentioning, technology doesn't just happen. There's usually theorists and scientists working on all kinds of things. Look at where we are now. AI. You look at the infrastructure that we have in computer technology, it's staggering. These computers we're using right now are toys compared with what the government has. They've had parallel computing. See, we use serial computing. It's all like data streams. They flip zeros and ones. When you get into parallel computing, like the stuff they're running in these military installations, the power is stunning. And they've had this stuff sitting around for a long, I think that all came in the 40s too. And you can only imagine where they're at now. They're hitting the wall with silicon. They can't go any faster. Now, you know what they're doing? They're using organic processors, the same stuff you got in your brain. Which is carbon-based microprocessors. So very deep stuff. So we're going to see an explosion in not only AI, but I think technologies that have been shelved and have not been released. And that could really start to happen this year with the combination of Uranus to the Pleiades, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, and the eclipse points all ratcheting into a catalytic point of fire and air. You want fire, you got to have air, right? So that's right. A catalyst that really cranks in. And it's interesting. I was very skeptical of all this stuff. My mother turned me on to this in the mid 70s. And I said, come on. I said, this stuff doesn't work. And she started showing me various different things. She was into medical astrology. She was a specialist in hemodialysis. And she started nailing it, girlfriends to the T. And so I was like, how did you know she would be like? And she goes, I got her chart. And I said, come on, this stuff doesn't work. And that's what got me going. And then in the early 80s, I started bumping elbows with some really smart guys who were designing this software, which we currently have today. And they were actually working with NASA, plotting the celestial movements. You can't fire a rocket off to something unless you know exactly where things are. So it takes some very sophisticated astronomy to plot this stuff. And, rockets.
I was with Serena Wright Taylor over the weekend. And of course, she knows she's a great astrologer. Yep. And you guys are friends. And she knew that you were going to be on today. And for the last couple of weeks, I've been battling this cold, which I'm over now. I'm fine. But I went down and had a dinner at her place yesterday in Huntington Beach. Oh, wow. Hugh was there, and Paul Hynek was there, and Christine was there, Augustine and Augustin. Anyway, today, Serena texted me this morning. She goes, so Jeff's going to be on your show tonight. I said, yep. She goes, yeah, I'm nursing a sore throat. I said, oh, no, I hope you didn't get that from me. Right. That was my text. And she goes, no, It was Mercury retrograde. Ask Jeff tonight.
Well, it's direct now. It's direct now,
that's
but
what
it
she
just,
said.
it just
Yeah,
went
yeah.
direct. Yeah. The guy who's also retrograde right now is Mars. And, you know, people have been asking me, are we going to have a smooth transition to power? Well, you know, whether you like Trump or hate Trump, I can tell you the owners don't like Trump. You know, everybody talks about Blackguard, State Street, and Vanguard, and all the other ones, and Soros, and all this. You know, and George Carlin was right. Forget the politicians. You have owners. And these are the dudes at the very top of the pyramid running the money. Follow the money. Who's doling out the money and where? And, you know, the Federal Reserve is no more federal than Federal Express. And Wilson handed the keys to that kingdom over in 1913, which astrologically showed up like a sore thumb when World War I broke out. It's absolutely amazing. And long story short, where I'm going with this is a powerful time right now where I think we're going to see the decks shifting like we've never seen before. There was something that happened in 2020. It was a 240-year cycle of Saturn and Jupiter joining together. You can actually track these back to the flood of Noah. It's really interesting stuff. And there's different theories about it. I've got a lot of books on it. But approximately every 1,000 years, we get this, what we call a great conjunction. Well, that happened just about on the formation of this country in 1776. And I think the Masons knew it. I know the Catholics hate the Masons. A lot of religions hate the Masons. But these guys, I tell you what, if you read the Constitution and you read the Bill of Rights, I think it's a pretty damn good document.
It was pretty fun to see. I don't know about the historical connections with it, but to look up in the sky, the night sky, and watch that slowly come together, that was unbelievable. This is Serena's text. She says, it is the Mars transit opposite Pluto.
That's right. She's exactly right. And I was going to get to that.
Okay.
See, we had a Saturn-Jupiter conjunction at the formation of this country. We had another one in 2020. COVID broke out right when Saturn and Pluto joined. These are all major outer cycles for anybody not understanding this stuff. Well, right now, we got Mars retrograding, and it's going backwards until February 23rd. Now, we all know the planets don't go backwards, but they actually do if you live on Earth. And that's where we live. You know, we're not in a third grade astronomy class. We're living on Earth, right? So, you know, the astronomers will tell you all the planets go around the sun. Well, okay, but we don't live in the sun. We live in the Earth. So planets appear to go backwards against the fixed stars because of our perspective and the speeds. So Mars goes retrograde until February 23rd, and it's going to hit an opposition to Pluto on the 2nd of January. That's very powerful. And again, I was kind of alluding to when I got into all that stuff about the owners and the bankers. I don't think like where things are going. And this relates to the Uranus going over the Pleiades. Every time the world has this happen, we see insanity go on. And we are seeing insanity. China has been doing the largest buildup for almost the last decade that we've seen since World War II. And just like look at Hitler. Hitler started a decade before World War II really got going, maybe about 8 or 9 years before. And all the buildup with Japan. I always tell the story. I was in a federal vault once back in the 90s. A banker showed me fork truck pallets stacked to the ceiling of gold-backed bonds issued by the U.S. Treasury Department to the Republic of Germany in 1933, callable in 1945. I won't get into conspiracy theories here, but anyways, and also Japan. So you watch where the money's going, and you look at what's happening in the Middle East. I think we could see a consolidation, quite possibly, of the North American. Canada might go first, and this sounds crazy, but Stuart Swerdlow, I was just listening to him the other night, and he said the same thing. He said it's possible we could see consolidations and restructurings of this whole global setup. unlike we've ever seen since World War I and World War II. Hopefully, we won't have a World War III because 40 or 50 million people died in World War II. If we get a war now, forget just nuclear. When you look at chemical warfare and all the other stuff, and that relates to the drones coming up here, I'll tell you what, billions could die. Billions.
It's not even chemical. It's not even nuclear. That's not scary. It's the internet and
that too.
AI.
Right.
I'm being serious.
That could take us out.
You would pray for chemical weapons if the internet went out.
You wouldn't eat.
It's a big difference. So that's the scary part.
We lose electricity and water. We're done.
You said Stuart Swerdlow? He's still around, huh?
Yeah, he's still around. Yeah. He was saying the same thing that I'm seeing too, and that is the possibility. A lot of people say, "Well, geez, Trump and Trudeau met and all that." There's more going on than we know right now. Even the Panama Canal. See, a lot of people say, well, Panama president said we won't give it back. Well, they may not have a choice. They signed a treaty. Speaking of Jimmy Carter, who just died after 100 years old, he gave the Panama Canal, but it was conditional. It was conditional upon it would stay neutral. Well, it's not neutral. You got the Chinese on both ends of the Panama Canal, and they're taking in money from everybody to pass through it. That's not neutral.
Yeah. There's, I lived in Panama in the Panama Canal for 4 years, and I was there when they gave it away. Okay, I was there when they signed the treaty. When they signed, look, I got a Panama tattoo right here on my arm. So they signed the treaty. Mondale, he was vice president at the time, in my backyard. Now, when I say in my backyard, I hope you're not misunderstanding, Jeff, what I'm saying. They signed the treaty in my backyard. It was the craziest thing. I walked outside under the mango tree, and they had this long whole thing thing set up in the grass, and came in, man. There's Mondale. Went in and signed that.
Wow.
I was right there. And the difference the talk of China, no, that's not going on. But that's the media, and that's rumors and conspiracy theory. And I understand that. I understand what people are reading. I get that. But that's not what's going on down there. But let me tell you what the problem is. The problem is back then, and especially when we did the invasion of Panama in the 80s to go get Noriega, we still had military installed there. Okay. I lived on an army base, Fort Amador. We had Fort Clayton. We had Fort Kobe. We had Howard Air Force Base. On and on and on and on, spread all over the place, right? All of that, Rodman Air Force Base, all of that stuff is gone. There isn't any military infrastructure there anymore. Howard Air Force Base was huge. You know what it is now?
No,
it's condominiums. And so that's all. There is no American presence there. So you're not going into a sovereign nation and taking over. The Panama Canal is 40 miles wide and goes from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean. You're not going to go into a sovereign country and take that back. Not at this point.
We'll see what happens. Anything could happen this next 2 or 3 years.
Crazier shit has happened for sure. But what I'm saying is, it's not the kind of party it was 20 years ago, where going in 30 years ago was different because we had a different military presence than we do now. It's not some simple thing like it would have been in the past. In the past, we can go take it back. Yeah. But no. Today it's a different.
I don't think it'll be military. This is all right here, money. I think Rothschild said it the best. You give me control of the money, and he cares not who makes the laws. Yeah, it's interesting where everything is at. But we could see some very powerful changes.
Now, what about? Okay, let's stay right there in the time that we have left.
Yeah.
Before the commercial break, I should say. Pretty astounding things happened in the last couple of months. We are talking about changes in government, the toppling
You
of
bet.
governments, the toppling of presidents. We have South Korea, of course, what happened in Syria.
Yeah,
We had the
huge.
flare up that Syria would that nobody saw that coming. And
That was
anybody
a
that
curveball.
says, yeah, anybody that says they knew, no, or you would have said something. Nobody saw that coming, not Russia, United States, or anybody else. But
Yeah, that was a curveball.
of course, South Korea. We have stuff going down in Germany. We've got Trudeau in Canada is in a little bit of a tight spot. France is always turning over something. And this is all happening, it seems, in real time.
It is.
It's pretty bizarre. Are we going to see a continuation of these types of
I do think
state
that.
actors in 2025?
Well, see, I was mentioning before, in 2020, we had the echo from the creation of this country. It was the Saturn-Pluto conjunction of 2020. We mutated into what they call the air trines. And this will now, another 2 to 240 years, we'll see another one. That's a long ways away. But we just had the Saturn-Jupiter square. And I know this might sound a little confusing if you're not familiar with astrology to people listening. But what happens is the conjunctions, the squares, the oppositions, and the final squares are always trigger points in the world. Well, just December 24th, we had the Saturn-Jupiter square that echoed the 220 debacle that we got into. And look at where this country's at. We are completing right now as we speak a Pluto return on the United States. And I've been saying we were either going to be destroyed as a nation or we would be the phoenix rising out of the ashes. And again, going back to the Uranus thing that I was talking about earlier, I can't emphasize how huge that is astrologically, because Uranus is like a grenade. You throw it in a room and everybody scatters. But when you regroup, you come back in and you see things in a different perspective. That's one perspective. That's one way of looking at Uranus. The other way of looking at Uranus is it always brings unexpected, out of the blue events that you just don't see coming. And we have that happening all the way in to the middle of 2026. And I'll say another thing too. Trump, next time, it's not going to be a bullet whizzing by his head. He's got grave danger of poisoning. Also, he has grave danger of health issues. He's got Neptune for the first time in his life. It takes 180 years for Neptune to go around a person's birth chart. It's conjuncting his moon. Then he's got it opposing his sun. See, Trump was born during what they call a Kala Sarpa Yoga, which means all the planets are in between the eclipse points. It's a very dynamic karmic life. And I actually did a live when that assassination attempt happened. Mars hit his midheaven. I actually called that before. I said, he's in grave danger of an assassination attempt. They're going to try and kill him. And literally within minutes, and I'm talking minutes of that Mars conjuncting Trump's midheaven, the bullet went past his ear. And the other bullets were, now he's got to watch he doesn't get poisoned. And the owners at the top of the pyramid, who really, in my opinion, run not only this place, but the entire Western structures of finances. I think there's a real dissension here between the globalists and the nationalists. And so far, the nationalists just retook power. And I don't think it's just Trump. I think these rabbit holes go way, way deeper. And there's a lot of stuff tied in with a lot of demonic and I think angelic forces that are far, far beyond what we're going to unravel in a 2-hour radio show. But it's pretty wild stuff. And it does get into good and evil. And I think some of the craft, so-called, that we see in orbs are part of that. I think there's so much going on this planet and so many hidden forces and dimensional beings that
How so? We've got 2 minutes before the break.
Yeah.
And we'll pick up this drone conversation when we come back. But you brought up orbs.
Yeah.
Are you saying that there's a possibility that this is a spiritual thing and not necessarily ET or terrestrial technology?
It could be both. I mean, that's very mystical, but I have seen, everybody talks about Bigfoot, right? But I saw a huge guy who was almost 8 feet tall, and I think he dimension shifted. And he really could have been a Bigfoot, but I know the tracks were lost, and I didn't hear a sound after he crossed the road. And I've also, Chris Bledsoe is a good friend of mine. He's quite well known in the ufology community. You might know him. You should have him on sometime. Amazing.
What's his name?
Chris Bledsoe.
Chris Bledsoe.
Bledsoe, yeah, great guy.
What's he do?
Well, he wrote the book UFO.
I'm messing with you, Jeff.
Oh, you know him. Okay, good. Yeah, he wrote the book UFO God, and he has seen people come out of orbs. My grandmother talked about that too. She said a fireball rolled through the house, and I think some of these are kinetic, or you could say spiritual energy that is here. There's a lot of stuff going on this planet that we'll never fully understand. You know, they claim
certainly the skies are starting to reveal themselves, and I find that very interesting. The drone part of it, if you see something with navigation lights on it, chances are, you know, it's coming from this planet, unless ET is. Those
are black ops. I really think they're black ops. We cast a chart on that interrogation. I think some of them are black ops. I really do.
For to what end? Why would they do it?
Well, there's been reports, I don't know if you've heard this, but some of them might be emitting some type of mist or weird stuff. And there's been, complaints that not only do we have chemtrails, but we might have certain drones doing some things that are releasing some kind of an agent. And some people have suspected many different things, but it's quite possible. I don't think they all are. And I think there might be craft watching that going on. The reason I say this is I cast an interrogation. And for anyone who doesn't know what that is, one of the oldest types of astrology that literally goes back thousands of years. In fact, some of the best stuff is the Egyptian stuff and the stuff that came up out of ancient India and Tibet. And it's literally casting a chart for the moment. You don't need your birth time. You don't need to know, where you were born. You just ask a question, and the Eastern horizon becomes you, the querent, where consciousness was established. And then, depending on what you're asking about, you look at the rest of the houses in the birth chart. In fact, I said Trump was going to win this time, and big time.
Let's stay on the drone.
That's interrogation.
Well, you say you did the interrogation on the drones and the orbs. So what happened?
It looked like it was a twofold thing: black ops and something very advanced watching it. Extraterrestrial, you can call it spiritual, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, so that's why people are seeing so much. They're seeing so much because some of look at the reports. We're seeing stuff like the size of an SUV. Other ones are flashing. Other ones are doing this. Other are emitting gases. Some people have said they're spraying stuff and creating fog. I mean, have you seen the crazy fog we've had around here lately?
Yeah, yesterday driving to Huntington Beach when I came over the hill, man, I couldn't even see. in the Sepulveda Pass. It was all the way past LAX. It was thick in the middle of the day. But out here by my house, you just dropped out.
It'll come back.
Well, let's go ahead and take our break.
Yeah, let's take our break.
Yeah, let's take our break. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Jeff Harman is with us. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Backley Tappy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Jeff Harman is with us. He is a second-generation world-renowned master astrologer and spiritual advisor with 47 years of experience. And we are here. Today is the day before New Year's Eve. Tomorrow is New Year's Eve. Wednesday, it is 2025. And that's what we are doing tonight. We're going through Jeff's predictions for 2025 and beyond. And now, Jeff, right before the break, we started to talk about drones. We talked about disclosure a little bit in the first hour. Are the drones? I've done a ton of media over the last couple of weeks that has reached. I'm Fox, Daily Express over in the UK, Yahoo. Philadelphia Inquirer. I can just go on and on and on. And they were all, and I think the journalists are asking the right questions, where before it was never that kind of party. But right now, the journalists want to know if some of this drone stuff could be ET, and what should we do to know the difference? And now, talking about not only 2025, I want to know what astrology is saying about ET and contact and looking at Earth. And I would say that if you want to get mixed up and hide in plain sight, you would do it right now with all these drones. That's what you would do if you were ET. So what does astrology say about ET making contact with us?
Well, contact with us, I don't know that I have had people ask interrogations. That's the most reliable tool. A lot of people know it as horary astrology, which I don't like. That's a Latin term. But interrogation, I've had asked about that, and specifically about these drones. What I get, there's a dual effect here going on. We have a black ops stuff that's happening. Some people suspect that they're sniffing for nukes. Others have said, no, they're doing stuff where they're spraying or they're releasing agents. That could be a possibility. When you look at what we
who would be releasing agents, though?
Well,
are you saying our own government would be releasing agents over American citizens? That's a hell of a claim.
That's a hell of a claim. I get it's a black ops. That's what I get. And it's covert. It's again, it's hard to put the finger on, it's our government. I mean, when you look at black ops stuff going on, this is stuff that's funded by the owners at the top of the pyramid. And I think it transcends the quote unquote government. You've got stuff going on. I know I've got clients. They don't say much. They can't, but I do get what I hear. And there's underground bases going on. There's so much detailed stuff that is so advanced in genetic research AI research, robotics, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not so sure that some of this isn't tied in with the terrestrial beings that have been here probably as long as we have, and quite possibly a lot longer. I mean, we hear about all this stuff that goes on in these various underground bases and tunnels, and I'm sure you've heard all about it. And I know you know.
Sure.
Yeah.
But why New Jersey?
Very good question.
Well,
I'm not hearing it's just New Jersey. I'm hearing it's overseas. It's out here in California, Florida. We just had a video come in right before I got on the show. They're seeing it all over the place. Now that's more concentrated there, but they're seeing it all over the place.
I agree. But the focus, we've had Vandenberg Space Force Base. We had stuff in my backyard. When I say backyard, I live on a golf course.
Yeah, you're right. Skunk Works.
That's what's in front of Skunk Works is the golf course. Is our neighborhood watch app for this country club went off, and we have about 85 homes that are registered, all the homes here. And anyway, this is last week, and it goes off, and I just happened to glance down because normally. I don't want to make fun of my neighbors, but normally the neighborhood watch app is about missing cats. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, whatever. And I glanced down and it says 20 to 30 drones right now over the golf course.
That's what I mean. It's happening everywhere.
What? So, but that doesn't change the reality of the situation, which is New Jersey, New York, Langley, Massachusetts, Boston, that area of the country is the focus, and that's where most of we see videos.
The media is focusing us. Yeah.
So one would have to ask why New Jersey? I mean, it just doesn't make. Well, you know what though? None of this is supposed to make any sense. Otherwise, we would have it all figured out.
I can get it. It's black ops. That's what I get, and it's not in our best interest. That's another thing I got. You're
getting that from your sources, or you're getting
no,
that
I'm
from
getting that from the astrology. What happened is someone asked me, hey, what's going on with this? What's the purpose? What is really happening? So I cast the chart, and literally the eastern horizon is the querent. And then what they're asking about, and of course we're asking about phenomena that's happening over our you could say terrestrial world here, the country, which is the 4th house. The government is the 10th house. Spiritual things is the 9th house. See, if you look at astrology, there's 12 divisions. These are the terrestrial, if you will, divisions of the Earth's sphere. And it's very ancient. It goes all the way back to the kind of the beginning of time when you look at the ancient astrology. So what you do is you look at the rulership. See, each house has a sign on it, which is a constellation, and it rules a planet. So you look at the geometric aspects in between it, and you also look at the moon. So you can get a good idea whether somebody's asking something that's full of beans, it's untrue, or a rumor or report has validity to it. And, I have to say, this looked like the government, or you could say those in power and authority, where they knew exactly what was happening.
Well, you bring up such a good point. Yeah. And I brought this, I can't mention this enough. The FAA, and any other agency that's involved right now, including the FBI and the CIA, and of course,
there's nothing in the skies they don't know about.
The FAA knows exactly what's going on. Any drone that's over a certain weight and a certain size has to be registered, and you have to get certification. That's just so you can fly it. Then you unlock the software and it's registered, and then you can take these things fly over 2 feet. Before that, they just rise up and land. And so that allows the FAA to know exactly who's flying it.
And how many people have been shut down, like you're saying. They get shut down all the time. So they know exactly what's going on.
And for them not going public about this, I think is suspect. Tell us a little, at least.
It comes up nefarious. They're up to something. And I'll tell you, after COVID, I don't care what anybody says. You could have set your watch to the astrology. I was on, I think George Norris at that time. He said, "What do you think about what's coming?" I said, "Something big's coming up." You could have set your watch to the Saturn-Pluto conjunction that happened in 2020 when COVID broke out, when it went public, when it went, okay, folks, we've got a pandemic. It was like clockwork. In fact, if you go back to World War I and you start looking at all these arrangements, I really have to say, some of this, I think, is connected to, you could say, subterranean beings, demonic forces too, that are constantly at war with one another. And I really have to say that. And I think when you get outside of time and space, and, quantum physics looks at this stuff, some of your greatest minds, Tesla said the same thing. We're in a simulation here. I always say, forget Trinity, Neo, and Morpheus. We are in a matrix of the soul. The earth is a time machine. It really is. And when you step outside of that realm, a lot of things can happen. And I think we've got forces here going on, and these drones could be connected to that. I really think that. And I also think that there's higher beings watching this at the same time. I mean, you know all about Admiral Byrd. He was brought down with this squadron. The U.S. government spent millions of dollars. They went into Antarctica. Everyone's enamored with Antarctica, right? They got mountains named after the Rockefellers. And they were pulled down and literally told, look, if you guys go in all nuclear war, we will stop it. And there's a lot of forces going on right now. And it's kind of mysterious. This goes right back to Uranus. This
well, when you say that
weird stuff.
Hold on, Jeff. Hold on. When you say that, and I agree with you. Okay, we're in agreement. But if we back up, and you had mentioned earlier, nuclear, chemical, and other issues, if World War III. Well, doesn't that take the nuclear side of everything off of the table if ET is watching?
Well, I think they'd intervene. I mean, look at Minot Air Force Base. If it happened, I think they would intervene. I really do. And we probably wouldn't even know about it. Look at Minot Air Force Base. The commander came forward and said, look, we saw orbs around the nuclear missiles and the silos. Afterwards, we were replacing circuit boards. I sat and listened to the guy with the book Left at Eastgate. That was the story about the German base that we weren't supposed to have nukes at. Remember that? And right after this craft came down, cement trucks.
You're talking about Rendlesham Forest.
Yeah, I believe
Nick Pope. Nick Pope wrote Left at Eastgate.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Left at Eastgate. That's right, Nick Pope. And this was 20 years ago. I heard this, and at a meeting, at a MUFON meeting, and he said this craft came down. These guys were mesmerized. Some of them had memory losses, and right after that, magically, we see the cement trucks rolling in. They cemented everything over. All the nukes were yanked. So there are forces, and when I talk about black ops, that's kind of a random term that people throw around, including myself. But there are forces, or you could say entities, and again, the military budget's one thing, the black ops seems to be a whole nother. I mean, from everything I can ascertain, and I'm sure you're familiar with too, is we have interaction with terrestrial or extraterrestrial beings that have given us some very advanced stuff. Look at Area 51, and that's just one. Look at what's going on in these underground bases. And something really big is happening right now. And this dovetails back into what I was saying at the beginning of the show. We have Uranus, the planet of out of the blue, crazy change. That's the operative word, change. If you wanted to say, what is Uranus? Uranus, you look at its astronomy, it orbits 180 degrees on its side. So Uranus is like throwing a grenade in the room, a change grenade. And we're there. As Uranus traverses over the Pleiades between now and 2026, 27, we are, in for a roller coaster ride. And the owners at the top of the pyramid, who mysteriously seem to be secretly shoveling money into different buildups and things behind the scenes, like God only really knows what's going on with Turkey and Syria and Israel and all the other points in between. Follow the money. They ain't talking about it on Fox News or CNN. I can tell you about that. So there's stuff secretly and covertly going on. And again, look at this Russian-Ukrainian thing. Why is the United States shoveling money into this and giving long-range weapons to antagonize the Russians? Now, I'm not saying one way or another who's right or who's wrong, but a hell of a lot of people are dying here. And they seem to love carnage, don't they? They love seeing people die. And, I'm not taking any side of the fence on politics. I'm just saying there are forces that are causing this stuff to happen. And the astrology shows we are at a really dangerous point right now. All your generals are saying the same thing, is that we are closer to World War III than we've been since World War II. Well, isn't that interesting? That was the last time Uranus was going over the Pleiades. And this star, Alcyon, is a very powerful star. Some people used to say it was the central sun that we orbited around. There's dispute about that, meaning the 5,007 or 900 year cycle called the Great Year. And we are contacting that 2 times. The first time is going to be this July, from probably about the second week of July, the beginning of the second week, into the third week of July. It'll be right hovering over that fixed star. And then it retrogrades and comes back again and bangs it one more time, May of 2026. And when we look at what's going on in the world, it's pretty precarious. And that might be why we're seeing all these crap.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And what about money? And I'm going to set you up with this.
Yeah.
The economy, especially over the last 4 years, has never been stronger on all fronts. Stock market has never been bigger. Jobs never had this low unemployment rate. There's money everywhere. Gas prices are low. Everything is great. On top of that, right now, Bitcoin is, it went down to $93,000, right? Down, but it's up to $100,000, right? There's never been more money or more happiness than the last 4 years. Can it get better, or is it going to go down? There's when you're at 10, can you get to 11, right? Is it possible to get to 11? What's going to happen in 2025 when it comes to my money?
Well, I think we're going to see things continue. For me, I don't see any major hiccups, like catastrophic things, until 27, 28. That's when we could see some big hiccups.
So the economy is going to continue to grow in 2025.
I think so. I really do. That would be my take. The United States, now you have to look at this economy. The United States birth chart has a primary directed sun trining Jupiter. Now you might say, what does that mean? Well, see, when we're born, or a country is put into effect by signing the declaration, or whatever country is formed by, you can take its birth chart and progress it. Primary direction just means everything moves 1 degree per year. And the United States is exactly 248 years old as of last July. So we have a very powerful thing coming up that's good. It's Jupiter trining the sun. I would say we're likely to see manufacturing start to come back here in a different way than it was years ago. We're not going to see the old factories. AI is here to stay. Robotics is here to stay. I think we're going to see an expansion of goods being produced here. And again, there's dispute on the economy. Some people say it hasn't been good. Other people say it has. If you look at the stock market, it's been cranking.
Stock market and Bitcoin right now. Bitcoin, that's I don't know how else anybody measure, and gas prices. How else do you measure
gas prices,
the economy and unemployment? No, they're not. I paid $3.99 yesterday. $3.99. That's the cheapest. That's the cheapest it's been.
You're running regular in that Harley. You can't run regular in that Harley, Jim.
No, that was in my Jeep. That was in my Jeep.
All right. I run premium in the India.
Yeah, it's $4.49 premium.
That's right.
It's the cheap. What I'm paying. I paid $6.20. I was up to $6.29 a gallon for premium 4 years ago.
Hey, man,
crap. And you were doing it too.
Oh yeah, we all were. Well, not 4 years ago, more like 3. Yeah, but yeah, I could tell you. Yeah, well, look at the scamdemic and everything that happened. Yeah, I remember in 1977, I used to be paying, I think, with gas wars, 38 cents a gallon. I could fill my motorcycle up 4.5 gallons for $2.58. I think it was.
Yeah. Those days have
those
been
are
gone
gone.
for 70 years. How old are you, Jeff?
It's
My God,
65.
you're lying to Camille. Camille, she's in the chat room. I'm going to tell her right now. Jeff is 118 years old.
No. He's in his mid 60s. So 65.
We're the same age, huh?
Yeah, I'm in my 66th year. Yeah.
I
always
thought-
round up. Yeah.
I thought you were younger than me.
No.
Yeah, I always thought you were younger.
My
than
first motorcycle was in 1967. Hey, you want to see something cool? Can I present here? Can I present?
Just as long as there's clothes.
Yeah, here, hang on a minute. Let me show you something.
So, what are the indicators? Back to the money. When it comes to stars, what are the indicators? What do you look for when it comes to money?
Well, the 9/11 happened on a Saturn-Pluto opposition. The bank crashes in 2008 happened on a Saturn-Pluto square. Those are two types of indicators. The other one is you got to look at the country. Now, the economy may look good in the stock market and Bitcoin and all that and crypto, but it's actually not been that strong. I mean, we are $36 trillion in debt.
Camille just posted that I was wrong. You're 116.
Oh, yeah.
It's right here. You want me to? You want to see
sure.
it?
No, I believe you.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, whatever it takes. But anyways, long story short, I would say that we should be on an upswing for the country, for this country. And again, I know a lot of people hate him, a lot of people love him. I think what's about to happen with the people being put in, I'm optimistic about the United States coming up here. I really am. I think the owners want that too. And I always refer to that. George Carlin kind of coined that phrase because the buildup with China is exceedingly dangerous.
It's been going on for a while.
For a decade.
Yeah, it's been going on for a while. I mean, I think that anybody with a very sensible mind understands. I remember I closed out one of my TV shows series on History Channel. I closed out one episode. The director said, "Okay, so Jimmy, look straight into the camera and lay it out." And I said, "Okay." And so I'm looking dead in the camera, and I said, "Look, whoever gets elected into the Oval Office goes through the inauguration, goes back to the White House for the first time, into the Oval Office, sits at the desk, moves the ink blotter around, right? Adjusts the pen holder, puts the phone in the right spot, sits back and goes, this is cool. Ring. There goes the phone. Pick it up. What's up? This is your boss." That's what happens.
Yeah.
I'm telling it just doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah.
I could give a crap who was elected. I could give a crap. I don't care. Red, blue, white, black, man, woman. I don't care. They're not the boss.
They own this place.
Yeah, they are not the boss. They are not. You can talk.
Yeah, they own
you can
it.
talk.
Rothschild said it best. He says, "You give me control of the money, and I care not who makes the laws."
Jimmy Carter just passed away at 100 years old. Okay.
Yep.
Now, Jimmy Carter had a UFO sighting that he reported. He wrote it up, submitted the report.
Reagan did too.
And he made it part of his campaign. Jimmy Carter said, "I get elected, I'm going into the Oval Office, and I'm getting the truth about them aliens, and I'm going to report back to you." That was the last time we ever heard about it. That's just
right.
the way it is. You're not the boss.
The way it is. That's right. You're not the boss. You bet. I mean, a lot of people criticize David Icke, but I'll tell you what, a lot of what he says is not too far off base.
You can't say his name on this show.
You can't.
No, don't do it. YouTube. YouTube shut me down. YouTube.
Oh, wow.
Oh man. Oh, you have no idea.
Wow.
YouTube shut me down.
Oh, yeah. They don't like him. Yep.
No. They literally wrote me and
Wow.
it got really ugly, and it lasted for about a year and a half. I was going back and forth, had
Well,
my
that's another
attorneys
thing I think
involved.
that's going to happen is freedom of speech with this new administration is very much more likely to become a central issue. That is the most fundamental freedom. I mean, if you ever read the Bill of Rights, and I have a couple of things Camille got me. It was amazing. It was the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. These people were really smart, and they just didn't come up with it on their own. They consulted the Iroquois Indians and many different people throughout Europe. I think the United States is an experiment of expanded consciousness. I mean, you can be any color, any size, any creed from anywhere, and you can have freedom here. And when you talk about this limitation of freedom of speech, which has been going on definitely the last 4 years and before, it is time to get back to the Constitution, in my opinion. And I think if that's not allowed, we're in sad shape. And, it's just like you said about Jimmy Carter. This has been going on a long time. There was 2 presidents that tried to actually run this country. One was Lincoln and the other one was Kennedy. And they put a bullet in his head. I remember Kennedy getting killed. I was just a little kid. And I totally remember that. I actually went on Air Force One in Tucson that Kennedy was brought back on. And like the elementals in that thing were so powerful. I was like, whoa, this is heavy. And, we certainly have heard the conspiracy theories about that. And, there's forces going on that run this government. And I think it's far beyond just human. I really do. I think the lines, the guardrails on both the left and right side of the road are good and evil. I really do. And we do have free will. And this place is such an amazing spot. I want to present something here, if you don't mind. This is a really cool diagram because this opens up a lot here. And I'm going to share my screen, if you don't mind. I'm going to go to the entire screen. I'm going to go to that. And this is one of my favorite diagrams that I love to show. Let me see if I can do that. There we go. Now the computer's working. And you'll see here what I'm about to show, if I can find it here. Actually, it's back over here. That's right. I forgot. We switched computers because I had an issue with the camera originally. So let me find out where the heck this folder is on this thing. Here, I'll just do it this way. Let's see, old pictures. Oh, I got to show you this, Jimmy. I mean, you got to see this. This is my grandfather in 1946. Oh no, that's my first motorcycle. That was a Whizzer. Here, let me show you. Yeah, here it is. This is my grandfather guiding General MacArthur on his motorcycle. Isn't that a cool picture? Look at that. And that was a Harley too, by the way.
Okay, take that full screen. There you go.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Right.
Look at the old gas pumps. I think gas. He told me gas was, I think, 18 cents a gallon back then. That was 1946. MacArthur's behind the flag. You can't see his face. I wish you could, but that's my grandfather right there, where I'm circling. If you can see it, with the kind of chrome motorcycle windshield. And look at those.
That's pretty cool.
Awesome.
And it's a Harley, not an Indian, which I think is more important for everybody to know.
Well, here's your Harley for you. That was my grandfather in, I think, the late 30s. That was in Kenosha, Wisconsin, on the bridge right by the harbor. And that was I think that was about a 14 or 1500 cc Harley. That was like a 89 or 90 cubic inch, something like that. But he's the guy who bought me my first motorcycle in 1967. He came down the stairs with that little Whizzer all apart in a bushel basket. And he said, "Boy, you're going to learn how to ride." And I said, "Well, that's good. I like that." So that'll give you an idea how many times I've wiped out, Jimmy. So anyways, there's 2 kinds of motorcycle riders. You know that, don't you? Those that have gone down and those that will.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
I want to find this diagram because this is really going to get us back into something that is really, really cool. Sorry, here, hang on. Let me see if I.
Okay, while you're pulling that up, I think it's important to know that when we look at Jeff, as this is all about technology, we mentioned what happened during World War II, and then we have what happened between 1995 and 2000, which was another rapid, everything happened all at once. We had the internet coming in. We went from tube televisions to flat screens. We went from VHS, right? Videotape to DVDs, all of it just rapid, just to JPEGs and digital cameras, and film went out. And the same thing happened with it. All of this happened within 5 years. And I don't think that
Jupiter conjunctions.
I don't think we've ever recovered from the learning curve that was laid on us to tackle all of that technology.
Yeah, I agree. This, I want to take just a second to talk about this. Whatever God or creation is, it's certainly above creation. This, I love to show this diagram. This way at the top is known as the worlds of absolute. This is where they say souls are created. And there might be a hell of a lot more souls than just us humans and animals and plants and minerals. There's a lot going on. They say there's 49 dimensions and 49 subdimensions in this upper world. The next world's down Braya, which is where many spiritual denser worlds are said to be. Then you get down into what they call the Yetziratic world. Yetzirah is a word in Aramaic and Hebrew that actually means formation. And where I'm going with this is that they claim there could be 49 parallel universes and 49 subdimensions. And then you get into, and I can't balance my checkbook, let alone figure out how many dimensions that might actually be. And then you get into the astral planes, which is where I believe a lot of paranormal phenomena is bleeding in and out. And the earth appears to be a place where spirit manifests. If you look at the elements of a woman or an animal, when they say a conception, that's where the silver cord, if you will, is attached to the embryo. And when we exit the womb, that is what we call, the beginning of time. The earth is truly a time machine. That's what it is. And, when we talk about these predictions, they're really not predictions. I always say they're energies. And it's human consciousness and our reaction to it and our perception of reality that I think makes the predictions go one way or another. And I think there's a lot of forces here because humans have demonstrated they're pretty egotistical, and people, they love violence, they love wars. Not everybody, but a lot of people do. They actually like it. And, these energies that we have coming on to the world right now with Uranus going through the Pleiades, I think is a time of great expanded consciousness. And I think that actually started in 2020. And there's a lot of evil forces that are playing back and forth. Every culture of the world talks about some war in heaven, and they were cast down. The evil spirits, call them what you will. We call in the West, we call them, the devil, but it's really Satan, Lucifer, Belial, and Leviathan. If you get into some of the Egyptian lore and the ancient stuff, especially in Chaldea and the Vedantic and the Tibetan stuff, they all call them different things. And these forces, I think, are manifest in a very complex way with a lot of what we see on this planet. I really do.
Well, are you saying that this is something that you're predicting for 2025?
I'm saying this is something that ties in with the energies that you could call predictions. Again, I always get a little queasy on that word prediction, because to me, it's energy. And the physical world is always going to have these ebbs and flows, but I don't think they're ever the same. I don't think you can take Uranus and compare it to what happened in World War II. Why? The whole world was in a different place. And then you start looking at Tartarian stuff. I'm sure you've heard of that, right? Where a lot of things have been hidden and there's been resets that have been happening. I would tend to say these kinds of resets are very mysterious. You hear about the Chicago World's Fair and you hear about this free energy and these incredible, buildings and societies and underground things that are halfway, submerged. Look at San Francisco, some of the buildings, the mud flood stuff. So there's so much going on here, and astrology seems to tie into when these probable things happen. I mean, you look at what happened here in World War I and World War II. This whole planet was really restructured, and we only know what the film cameras, were edited to show us. So it's a lot of complex.
Well, I understand it, but so are you suggesting that we are in 2025? This kind of reset is in the stars.
I think over the next 7 years, Uranus is going to bring a roller coaster ride, definitely over the next 2. From all these fixed stars that are really powerful, I hope they don't try and create a war that is not nuclear, but it's more conventional. And again, people have to realize we don't just have nuclear and chemical warfare. I mean, they have particle beams, directed energy weapons, lasers. I mean, our equipment right now is I don't know if you know this, but I heard up at Skunk Works, they perfected fission, which is different than fusion. They can actually keep a craft in the air for 25 years if they want. It's low-level nuclear power that can run all kinds of directed energy weapons. From everything I've heard, we have stuff that's so advanced we don't even know what to call it in the mundane world. And this fits to the astrology. We're going to see an explosion. I mean, flat screens and internet is one thing, but where we're going, I think it's going to be like the Jetsons. I've been saying that ever since 220 forward. We are in an accelerated growth that's going to be incredible in genetics, free energy.
Okay, free energy being one. What else?
Well, I would say definitely we're going to see transportation start to really expand. I mean, we've had flying cars and all that, but for that to become a reality, I mean, you really have to have advanced AI controlling this. I mean, people can't even drive on the roads without hitting each other. So, and if we're going to start seeing mass, migration into flying cars and vehicles and craft, which could happen. What we're going to see in the next 20 years, I think, is going to blow our minds. And it's starting now. It actually started in 220. And this Uranus going over these fixed stars could cause us a lot of trouble, but it also could cause us a huge growth spurt in technology.
When you say 220, you mean 2020?
Yeah, 2020. Yeah.
So
from 2020, we had a Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. Remember seeing that in the sky? It was huge.
Yeah, it was great. It was
really cool. And that was really a 240-year new era that we've just entered into. And that's the commencement. We're on a ramp up, I think, of advancement.
So we've been in a positive direction since 2020, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, we've had a lot of trouble. I wouldn't say it's been positive. What I would say is it's a time of a greatly expanded acceleration in populations, technologies. And I think we're going to see stuff that's been hidden come out. And this Uranus, again, going over the Pleiades, this is a wild card. We're going to see everything from trouble and war to expanded technologies. I mean, look at what's happening. The U.S. military, I've heard, is so advanced in drones and in unmanned craft and in extremely high-tech robotics. And nobody's going to know about this stuff. They're not telling anybody.
Well, what's interesting about that? I'm glad you brought it up. And I live down. When I say down the street, you can see Skunk Works from my house. It's right there.
A lot of stuff going on.
I'm at the end of the runway.
Yeah.
Now, and I see everything. I see it all. Yeah. But here's the thing with that. If like the Tic Tac is a really good example. If that's our technology, then why don't we own the world? Why hasn't the United States used it? If we have that ability, why don't we lay out an example to our adversaries of, no warning shots? We've got it all, but we haven't seen evidence of any of this in play anywhere. And if it's Russia with this technology or China with this technology, they haven't used it either.
No,
right?
China's
And
so far behind us in that sense.
so that's why I think it's ET. That would
It could be both.
I don't think it's us. I don't think it's our adversaries.
Now you get into the black ops. This is what I'm saying. I think there's a whole nother entity behind what we call government and military.
Well, but if that was the case, we wouldn't have any issues with Russia. Putin would be freaked out of his mind.
It makes too much money. It's all about money. These people are lining their pockets. Rothschild said it again. He said, I make more in one day of war than I do in peace, in a year of peace.
Do you understand what I'm saying, though? I mean, Russia's at war with Ukraine. There's no money being made on that.
The military industrial complex is making fortunes right now.
Here in the United States, yes. But what I'm saying, back to my point, if we have that technology, I would assume that we would demonstrate it. And we haven't.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know about that one. I don't know about that. That's a good point.
I don't
know about that.
Russia hasn't seen it. China wouldn't be messing around if we demonstrated that kind of power.
Well, they're really not. China's keeping it pretty close to the vest. I mean, they may have a lot of ships. You know that we're the only country that has dual and triple nuclear powered, aircraft carriers. France has one. China just built a submarine and it's sunk in a river, a nuclear submarine. I mean, we could go up underneath their noses and we could turn their continent into a glazed bowl in about a half of a nanosecond. They don't even know we're there. So, I mean, the technologies, when you really look at it, these wars seem to be very profitable when they happen. There's no doubt about that. The motivation seems to be financial. And I think there's, I'm going out on a limb here, but from what I see, I think there are spiritual forces. That's why I showed that diagram. There are spiritual forces of good and evil. This planet, there's 8-9 billion souls almost, and that's the best we can guess at on this planet, and that's just humans, let alone terrestrial life that we don't know about, that is underground and dimensionally shifting. I mean, you look at the craft coming in and out of that base off of Malibu. I mean, I know I've seen stuff. I was just on my motorcycle. I saw a cylindrical craft and I looked up and I said, what the hell is that? And then I was going like 50 something miles an hour. So I couldn't really, sit there and look at it without stopping. But I know what I saw. And I've seen so much stuff out there. I've actually psychically been read by them. I was standing at Castle Rock Beach and I felt a scan. I could literally hear them psychically saying, well, he's mostly vegetarian and he's this, he's that. And all of a sudden I look up and poof, this thing streaks across the sky. And, I've had a lot of stuff like that. And, nobody's going to tell me we aren't in a matrix here that I think is so much deeper than any of us can fathom, certainly than I can fathom. And, I don't have answers to this stuff, but clearly, look at the people you've had on your show. I mean, we hear some interesting things. So I think, again, the guardrails on this reality structure here, or this place that we call Earth, is far more complex than we know. And one thing's interesting is how the astrology seems to mirror when these things happen. Like, take 9/11. Take COVID, take the wars, take the shifts. Even the Industrial Revolution happened on a Saturn-Pluto conjunction. We are now in a really high-tech revolution ever since 220 forward. Even though we've had COVID and all the stuff going on politically and blah, 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 and wars, we are on an accelerated, I think, advancement plateau, or you could say, ascension that we've not seen probably since the last maybe 10,000 years. We're now heading back up.
What do you think about what do the stars say about the James Webb Space Telescope that is sitting out there in the stars, looking at stars and looking at atmospheres? What are the stars saying about that?
I don't know, because I've never had anybody ask that. Is that a question? You could cast a chart on it.
Well, I think it was just announced today that TRAPPIST-1b, the closest planet in the TRAPPIST star system, now has a carbon dioxide atmosphere and is a rocky planet and could support life. That's like crazy town. We are able to peer into the atmospheres of exoplanets that are light years away, and this is huge
James,
news.
Is really huge. Yeah. Let me see. So, what are you asking specifically? So I understand.
I'm just saying, when we're constantly talking about disclosure, is the James Webb going to continue with these huge revelations in 2025?
Yeah. I mean, when you get outside of time and space, as we would call it, I mean, they in the Vedas alone, they claim, and in some of the ancient rabbinical texts, they claim there's like hundreds of planets just like Earth, some more advanced and some not as advanced. The Vedas to me are so fascinating because they talk about every 4.3 billion years, creation, actually, they pull the rug in and it literally ends creation, as you could say, and re-expands. Bizarre stuff. And again, that's Earth years. And what the heck is that when you really stop and think about it? We are in a time machine here. Our years, our days, our months, and all this are reference to the celestial mechanics of this planet. The only reason we have a day is because we see the sun come over the eastern horizon, cumulates, sets, and then, of course, goes to midnight. And a year is a cycle around the sun. And again, all these celestial influences are really just what we call time. I don't believe there is any time. Well, there might be, but maybe not like this. The chart says it shows positive. I just cast the chart. You can't see this on the screen, but I'm looking up at it here. I have my monitors up above. It shows it's going to keep accelerating and show some amazing stuff, actually. Yeah. And it may have a lot to do with, what blows my mind, Jimmy? I have taken 14-bit uncompressed cameras, and I see craft coming in and out of the moon like crazy. I'm going to publish some of this stuff soon. If you take like a 1,000 millimeter or 2,000 millimeter really high quality cinema lens, which I have some really good lenses, and you can see these craft coming in and out of there. It's crazy. Even the rings of Saturn have craft coming in and out of them. And, when you stay on this left brain side of, visual contact and all these things, and then you go on the right brain side, if you want to call it that, the spiritual side, they talk about there's angels, spirits, and there's archangels, angels, spirits, and intelligence hierarchies in every one of the planets. And I really think this whole solar system is a matrix where spirit becomes attached to the physical world. See, the Yetziratic world is really where spirit gets concretized into matter. If you think about it, I could take a seed on the shelf that's been sitting there for 30 years and throw it in the ground, add water, and it grows. You take the sperm of a human being into the womb and the ovum of a woman, and it germinates, or an animal. I mean, this is where spirit becomes manifest. And that's a whole other way, I think, of looking at this planet and what it is, and they say everything under the heavens will be born, it will grow, it will mature, and it will be destroyed, including all the physical worlds themselves. The Vedas actually talk about this huge expansion and contraction that goes on they call it a kalpa. It's one kalpa is 4.3 billion years. Anybody can look it up. This is an amazing text. It's called the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, the Puranas. I mean, that's just one of many. These texts will blow your hair back. And then you look at Vedic astrology and the stars in the heavens and all these things we call predictions. It's really just looking at energy points in time that are releasing connected to the soul roots, And when we look at like what's happening in this world right now with all these celestial things that I mentioned, you're talking Uranus over the Pleiades, kissing these really powerful fixed stars. These are not trivial stars. Algol is one of the most evil stars in the sky. It's called Caput Algol. You can look it up. It's actually at about 2 degrees, 18 minutes right now of sidereal Taurus. Uranus is going to sweep back over that right this May. It's going to be right around I think it's the 4th of May, somewhere right around there. And I would not be surprised if we see some real events that are going to start popping up. And that could happen as early as April forward, maybe a little bit before. Why? Because Uranus will go direct, see? And when it goes direct, the energy starts shifting towards the alignment of that star. And when you get outside of astrology and you start looking at ancient astronomy, they talked about all these entities, or you could say celestial beings, call them what you will, angels, demons, or quite potentially even guardians of this particular dimension. Things seem to happen. And, you know, I was just amazed. I used to study with an old guy out of, he was from India, and he's dead now. It's called Kanapriya. And he used to do astrology for the, I shouldn't mention it, but the London bankers. We'll just put it that way. The owners, right? The owners. And he said they were enamored with timing. They love timing. They love to know when celestial alignments would happen. Isn't it strange that COVID broke out exactly on a Saturn-Pluto conjunction? And we had 9/11 happen on a Saturn-Pluto opposition. We had the banks crash. People say, yeah, but, you know, this happened and that happened and led to this, and the labs escaping, or whatever they want to say about all of these events. You know, bin Laden, I personally don't believe it was bin Laden, not to get into conspiracy theories, but buildings don't come down like sparklers from jet fuel. And, you know, people will dispute that. But the astrology lined up to the T. It just lined up to the T. And I think we're going to see some events here this year that are going to be, quite frankly, out of the blue.
Well, let's talk about that. Well, see, I think it's easy, and Jeff, you know this as well as anybody. It's easy to go back in time and line up the astrology.
Yeah, you bet.
It's another thing to look into the future and nail it in advance. That's
right. That's a prediction. That's right. So
we have 5 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
What are your what other predictions? That's what the show was called. That you have for 2025 that you want to let everybody know about.
Well, the main thing that I would say is that expect some very precarious, violent stuff that could happen this spring into early summer, right on the edge of summer. That's the Uranus going over that very evil star, Capodalgo. Very dangerous, very, very dangerous. It's the second hit. And a lot of things that have been brewing behind the scenes. I don't get it's going to happen on U.S. soil. Now, I hope I'm right about that. I've had several people ask me, geez, Jeff, do you think, you know, LA is going to get nuked? Do you think this will happen? I don't get it's going to be here. I really don't. And I hope I'm right about that. I think it's going to happen more in the Middle East and this whole situation with Europe. And I hope it doesn't. But you know, look at where the money's going, and the astrology's predicting the same thing, if you will. And I hope it doesn't happen. And you know,
so what else?
The other thing is, I think the U.S. economy is going to improve, and I think you're going to see a lot of manufacturing come back here. I think you're going to see the United States reignite its steel industry, its military industry on the home front here. AI is going to explode off the charts. I also think, don't be surprised if we see a lot of new technologies rolling out from May forward. Why? Kind of like you were saying, the same equivalent of going from, you know, CRTs to flat screen LEDs and the internet. That kind of stuff is going to explode. I think starting from this summer forward, when the eclipse points drop out right at the end of May, beginning of June. Beginning of June. And that's when it really starts kicking in. So we got this background of trouble being excited by Uranus, out of the blue shit coming from everywhere. And then we've got the eclipse points ushering in advanced technology. I think it's already happening. I think we're just going to see it become manifest. I also think disclosure actually might become a reality where they're forced to just say, okay, all right. Because the Saturn, Neptune conjunction that all kicks in for 2 times starting again. That is the first one is July. Right about the same time, Uranus goes over Alcyon, that central star that is so powerful, where the veil gets lifted. So we could see this could be an unprecedented year. And I hope they don't kill Trump, but they could. They could try.
Easy. Man, don't get my channel shut down, man. Chill. My goodness gracious.
I'm just going by his personal astrology. They already put a
man, you're gonna have the Secret Service at your place, man. You need to be
they
careful with that. Listen,
I don't.
Jeff,
I'm going by the astrology.
all the best to you and Camille.
Yeah.
And Jeff Harman's links, jeffharman.com.
Check out my YouTube channel. We got some really cool stuff every week that's going on. We should have you on there sometime as a guest. That'd be great.
You've got my number, man. You've
man.
got all the secret
We've got to go around those. And I'm going to show you. See, he's going to find out that the Indian will keep up with the Harley any day of the week.
Not mine. You haven't seen my Harley. Have you seen my Harley?
I got stage 2 cams. I got high flow. I mean, I'm putting out some serious power.
Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah. It sounds good.
We're gonna race. Weighs, that's it. What we're gonna put this on your next show. We're gonna race.
Your bike weighs 300 pounds more than mine.
It's over,
and I've got probably 30 more horsepower.
No, I'm 116 cubic inch. What are you? 103?
I'm the same. And
you're 116 cubic inch.
Yeah.
You'll go. You'll
my bike is 500 pounds.
Oh yeah, you're half my weight.
Yeah, I'm half your
weight. I probably weigh a lot more than you. I'm like 200 and almost 30 pounds. Yeah, so.
Yeah. But no, if you want to go, it's go
Let's
time.
Let's do it.
I'll talk to you, Jeff.
The Indian has a 45-degree rear cylinder. So they say it puts out a little more torque than a Harley.
Yeah. I'm 120 right now.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, see that silence, Jeff. But
hey,
I'm
the only thing that's going to settle this is we're going to have to meet up at the Snake and see who.
Yeah, anytime you're ready, man. I'm ready to go. Listen, Happy New Year, my friend. Happy New Year to Camille. Yeah. I'll talk to you soon, and let's go riding. I'll talk to you.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, I think we got a powerful year coming here with a lot of exciting changes and maybe a little danger. Let's hope not.
I'm looking forward to it, Jeff. Thank you so much, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was a great time.
Jeff Harman, the absolute very best. And again, jeffharman.com. The links are below. And for everybody, Happy New Year. This is New Year's Eve. Tomorrow is New Year's Eve. No show tomorrow, taking the day off. And no show on Wednesday because it's New Year's Day. We'll be back on Thursday with Trey Hudson. Until then, I want just everybody to be safe. Enjoy your New Year's. Go Beckley Teppy. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go Beckley Teppy.